Okay, so a very warm-hearted welcome to all of you now, and we will start with our talk now. In the beginning, I want to give you a short overview of what we will do tonight together. So first, I'm going to introduce today's topic a bit so that we all have a same base of what the problem is. Afterwards, I'm going to introduce our speakers. Then we will have our discussion. And then, of course, you all are free to ask questions to our speakers. And in the end, we'll have a short wrap up. Okay. So you can, of course, write all your questions in the chat, also while we're already speaking. And in the end, I will go through the questions in the chat. But of course, you're also free to ask your questions directly afterwards, directly to the speakers. So then you can just raise your hand. Good. But before all of that, I want to say a few words about oikos. Who are we? What is Oikos Graz? Oikos Graz is a student association that is committed to promoting sustainable business and responsible management, and also responsible leadership, especially. So it's very important for us to make sustainability more relevant also in degrees. So we want that sustainability is included in more and more curriculums, and we have a lot of events to raise awareness for certain sustainability issues. We're always happy if somebody new wants to join. So if you're interested, at the end I will also show a slide with all our contact data, but of course we're also easily reachable, and we're easily findable on the internet. Okay. Well, then I want to provide you with some facts about everyday tech products and their effects on the climate and the environment. To give you a short overview of why we decided to have this talk tonight. I will show you all of the sources at the end of the presentation. So if you're interested, you will also find them then in the description of our of the recording that we're going to upload on YouTube. Okay, let's start with some quick numbers. The average lifespan of mobile phones is in the US 2.65 years. In Germany, according to a different study, also from a different year, it's 1.75 years. So there are many studies on this issue. Some of them indicate even a lower lifespan of the typical mobile phone. And also there is a downward trend in the lifespan, according to Statista. And bearing in mind that the production of a phone has a strong negative impact on the environment and our climate, these numbers are highly problematic. Because now, speaking of tech production in general, 85 kilograms of CO2 or equivalents are emitted during the first year of the use of a phone. 95% of this comes from the manufacturing process. So use is not the most problematic thing. There are very few emissions caused by using a phone. It's the production that is the problem. And also, of course, the production is not just a problem regarding CO2 emissions, but also all phones contain various minerals, as we all know, for example, copper, silver, gold, rare earth metals, and those are mainly sourced under terrible conditions, mainly in the global south. That means that huge quantities of water are needed. Gold mining, for example, is one of the main causes of Amazon rainforest destruction. Also, these kind of minings lead to poisoning of soil and water, and in turn, of course, this harms people. This leads to human rights violations. So this list is open-ended. There are many things that could be added here, and yeah, this is one of the problems we want to talk about today. Another important issue connected to that topic is electronic waste, e-waste, as it's called usually. As we can see on the slide, most electronic waste is not recycled so far. In Europe, it's considerably more than in the rest of the world. The 17.4% refer to the whole world, and yeah, in Europe we have 42.5. But still, these numbers are important to know, because even though we know that recycling is possible, that does not mean that it is also being done. And what we also should bear in mind is that most e-waste is not even documented. So there's a lot of e-waste that is that does not show up in such statistics, because people are very used to store their e-waste in drawers at home. So most people have several old phones at home, for example, but also this is similar for other tech products. So a study found that the typical phone is stored 3 years on average after use at home. And the problem with that number is that the resources in a tech product get less valuable and less recyclable with every year that they spend in some drawer at home. Yeah, and what happens to the electronic waste if it's not recycled or disposed adequately? Well, it ends up on huge landfills, also many of them are in the global south, where they lead to pollution of air, water, soil, and therefore, again, human rights violations. And another important point to bear in mind is, if tech products are not recycled, this means that the resources in it, like those minerals that we talked about, are lost, which means the demand for new minerals, the demand for new mining is getting higher, which in turn then increases the negative impact and even doubles it, you could say, the negative impact of tech products. Yeah, so this is basically what I wanted to give you as a short base of what some of the problems in this area are. Of course, we know that there are far more problems, but I just wanted to pick out some very prominent ones, even though sustainability, as we said, in this area is not that well known, or the sustainability, the need for sustainability is not that well known as in other areas. And yeah, so let's proceed to our speakers. Here you can find the sources. I will, as I said, you will find them in the description of the YouTube recording. And so now let's go to our speakers. If you scan the QR codes that you can see on this slide, you will get directly to their LinkedIn profiles if you're interested in connecting with them. And yeah, so we have two speakers tonight, one of them being Darshini Waibel. She founded a sustainability consulting firm recently and has a lot of experience in that area. Please, Darshini, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Martin, and good evening, everyone. So I'm Darshini Waibel. I am a sustainability strategist working with the finance and tech sectors. I have initially trained as an economist and then a lawyer, and I have worked across the public and private sector in various countries, engaging in particular with the governance of sustainability programs. Yeah, thank you. Oh, actually, one point, I have 4 old phones in my drawer. So that's just to add to my introduction.
Yeah, we all know that we're not alone with this habit. Probably a lot of people don't even know how many old phones they still have at home. Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot for that introduction. And our second speaker tonight is Dietmar. Dietmar is an IT consultant and an repair enthusiast, meaning that he has a lot of experience in repairing consumer electronic products. But please, Dietmar, introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yes, welcome everybody. It's mainly true that I love to repair things. It's not like yesterday. It's been doing for I'd say more than 10 years now. Why I'm doing this? Because I think it's either practical to be to repair things on yourself and for sure also on looking on sustainability. When 10 years ago I started with my friend Andreas Höfler in Graz to work out the Repair Cafe as an initiative. We did not know what we are doing because we love to repair things. But afterwards, we found out that people are interested in, and I think from that on, more and more topics came up in the sustainability area.
Okay, thank you, Dietmar. Well, then we will go straight into the topic. I will stop the screen sharing so that you can better see us now during the discussion. Okay, well, Darshini, I'd like to start with a bit more general question after talking about such concrete facts. Could you please introduce us your company and also what experience you and your company has with sustainability in the tech sector? So what's the state of affairs in this industry?
Sure. So I founded Wiseblick in the UK. Wiseblick is a sustainability talent network that's connecting companies, both companies and also public sector entities with sustainability specialists. And the experts typically have about 10 years of experience, either in industry, policy, or in academia. And what we have been doing is deploying the experts on short-term advisory, training and research projects with both the finance and tech sectors. But what myself and my team we're effectively doing is designing a talent ecosystem in sustainability for the worker of the future. And for me, the worker of the future is one who naturally integrates sustainability or long-term thinking into the way products are designed, into the way companies are operated, and also the way communities are served. The worker of the future for me is also someone who it has accumulated experience, at the university, at school, And but then instead of switching jobs multiple times, decides to invest more into his or her brand and really values autonomy and flexibility, and would kind of find a natural home in a global talent network. And the third element is the work of the future would also be able to see very kind of in a very creative way how to fit his or her skill set with technology to maximize productivity. That's a little bit of background about what we're doing at Wiseblick. In terms of Wiseblick's experience with the tech sector, I have been focused personally on data for good initiatives. I have worked and trained the board of a UK fintech that is creating an app to it's a gamified savings app to promote a savings culture in the UK through the feeling of playing the lottery every week, so that every time you play through the app, you're actually saving, you're earning points, which allows you to get prizes. Another project has been helping a new carbon marketplace launch its registry in the UK. And the kind of purpose there is to promote nature as an investable asset class. Another one is around helping, again, like another data solution. I worked with a big tech company that has launched an app to promote employee engagement with sustainability. So a lot of my work has been with, I would say, like the software side, but I'm keenly, watching the sustainability trends in the tech space.
Okay, I see. So, but in general, would you say that tech companies already do certain things to tackle sustainability issues in their company? What is the state of affairs in the tech industry? Is there an interest from companies to change for the better?
Sure. I think in general, I mean, there are, if you look at the sustainability reports of, let's say, the big tech companies, you name it, like Apple, Samsung, Google, Amazon, and others, I mean, there are some leading trends that you see across. So on one hand, you can see the development of green products. So if you think about Google launching through its Tree Canopy Lab, kind of software to allow cities around the world to evaluate what are the most heated spots in a city and then take action accordingly. And then you're looking at other companies like Salesforce developing like net zero clouds or like launching a net zero marketplace last year. And then the other trend is looking at how they're positioning themselves to green their operations. So you have like a number of companies announcing how they're going to use more renewable energy, or some of them have said that actually all their operations are already running on renewable energy, like Apple. The other trend, to take it closer to the products, what we are seeing is at least the kind of commitment to introduce circularity in the product cycle, from the type of materials that will be used to up to like sustainable packaging. I don't know if you look at Lenovo using packaging made from bamboo or sugarcane, to then the kind of management of e-waste and the commitments that have been made there. What else? Like, I mean, in general, there is also a lot of kind of push from different stakeholders to look at human rights in the supply chain. So then they would have policies to look at that. I guess in general, we are seeing a lot of movement, a lot of mobilization around sustainability, but the question is always, is it enough? You know, and there's always room to do more to meet the very stretching policy targets set at the highest, like kind of UN level, to then down to the national policies.
Yeah, and also what you mentioned now basically is that we're seeing sustainability trends, and we're seeing change in certain areas. But on the other hand, there are still a lot of areas where change is equally necessary, but where we don't see it as much as we should, right? So I think especially of designing tech products, which is kind of is not one of the areas where really a lot happens, or at least this is not so much in the news. The awareness is far is by far not as big as, for example, for mobility or things like that, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, if you want to say something, of course you're free to do so. Okay, well then, Dietmar, so
Yes.
Maybe you also want to share a more general view of what you think of the state of sustainability in the tech sector.
Yes, for sure. I'm not the strategist, to be honest. I'm the pragmatical guys, and the only thing what I can tell is just looking back in the past and what I've seen inside those devices, to be honest. So mainly I have not seen about and not following about what strategies the big tech companies are doing. Mainly I know about these initiatives and what they offer, but if I look into detail, I would say it's getting more and more complex, to be honest. Complex is you get a very simplified device. My famous example is the toothbrush, and those things were very simple in 15, 20 years ago, and now it's getting more and more complex. So you get more circuits in it, you get more chips in it. At anything, at any piece that is touching your everyday life, you get more in connections with those things, and which is actually nice because people like those things, and you know, you get used to it because it's comfortable and it's helping you. But on the other side, if it's not working, you might not think about, okay, can I actually do something, or do I have to buy a new one? And that's mainly the problem. So you don't know about what to do when you have an issue with such device, and it's not so easy to find a solution for each device type. There's a few where I say there's big improvements. Let's take smartphones, where I say, okay, yes, the big companies understood it would make sense to simplify some things of the product design inside, that it can be easily changed the batteries, for one example. But on the other side, if I look on wearables, so these watches and things what you're carrying with you, I see a trend against it. So these things are mainly glued together, so it's nearly kind of impossible to repair it. See a lot of people walking around now, and then they have these earplugs. You know them. This is a very famous example where it's been, I think 5 years ago, this was not so famously being used, and now more and more people have it in their day life. But think about it, there's a battery inside, there's a lot of electronics inside in these devices already, and a few years later, the battery will not hold so long. So now we have still another dilemma of such small devices of everyday life, which is practical, but on the other side, not really durable and sustainable being designed because of the nature, what people want to have. It's not like what the big also was demanding to buy things. It's also what on the customer side is being requested. So if you want a thinner laptop, for example, a laptop that is having less weight, it's less height, so it can easily put it into your pocket. Then you have to change a lot of things in the interior product design of having those electronic components being interconnected. And and I can just tell that there's a lot of things happening there from the inside looking. And if that one is continuing, you get more and more a black box, I would call it. Yeah. So years ago we had more flexible components, I would call it, and now this has been an again negative trend of I call it system on chip. So it's one more functions, 10 functions, 15 functions, 20 functions in a single chip, and there you can do nothing. So if your GPS is not working on your device, it's a single chip. If your altitude barometer sensor is not working, it's on the single chip. Just giving you a few examples what is inside your daily gadgets.
Okay, so yeah, a very diverse view that you presented here actually. I was very surprised when I heard from you that there is some advancement in the phone sector, because when I think back, I remember, and we all remember, that like 10 to 15 years ago, it was still normal that you could like take off the back part of the back cover of a smartphone, and you could easily just put out the battery. That kind of vanished actually in the last years in my experience. So why do you think that there's a positive trend in this area?
As a positive trend because the big companies are being forced by law on the global space that they need to make it easier to repair. I'd say it's not for the normal people that they can handle with a screwdriver to open a device. For sure, this is not this is a way, and I believe it's never coming back again, because you want a device that is waterproof. So if you don't want a device that has this attributes, then it's fine. But 10, 15 years ago, it was not. So there was not so many waterproof and dust-proof devices out there. But now it's normal. So if you want to sell a product now, you have to close your device and be sure that is closed. But I was just looking more on again into the devices, and there I see it is getting a bit more being made easier to repair in this case, but not for normal people. For sure, this is not the case.
Mm-hmm. So just to close this topic, you mean even though it's not possible anymore with most phones to remove the back cover and to put out the battery, it's quite easy for an expert or for a repair professional to exchange the battery?
Yes, this is true. But I just talk for the big ones. To be honest, I'm talking about Samsung. I'm talking about Apple. I'm talking about some other, for example, Chinese producers of mobile phones out there. And there's hundreds of others, and this is getting more complex. But the big ones, I would say, a bit improving there to help the repair guys like I am doing to have a better life with these things.
Okay, well, that's actually a very nice insight. Yeah. Okay, so Darshini, you said at the beginning that you have a certain experience you experienced in the last years that there are different kinds of positive trends in different industries, but also in the tech industry. Do you think that those trends that they're intensifying, and if yes, also do you where do they come from? Is it the public? Is it legal requirements? Or is it maybe just marketing? Because as we all know, sustainability is like a great marketing asset for many companies, because people really try to live sustainable, which means they will rather buy sustainable products. So what do you think? Is this where is this trend coming from?
Yeah, no, so I think there is a big confluence of factors. So you have on one hand, consumers kind of putting pressure on companies to act more sustainably. On the other hand, you have like, you know, the market pressure of like everything is doing it, and therefore they feel the pressure to be more competitive and therefore come out with similar policies. And then the kind of, for me, the bigger catalyst for change is really regulation. And if I can maybe pause on that a bit more, in the EU space, what has come out in 2020 with the Circular Economy Action Plan, for me, is like you know, one big milestone, and now it has about 35 legislative and non-legislative actions falling under that are pushing for sustainable consumption and sustainable production patterns like across the board. We've also seen like over the last year and even like over the last week, packages coming out of the European Commission that are pushing for so like the right to repair on one hand, so the after sales space, as well as there was another package that came out last year to empower consumers with a green transition, like in terms of providing them with the right information at the point of sale. And you also have the one for the producers in terms of the eco design of sustainable products. So there is like a lot happening at the regulatory level that is definitely pushing companies to act and to kind of position themselves. And some of them, you know, some of those rules will only come into force in a couple of years because they're still now kind of being discussed. But there is, I mean, whether, and I'm going to take a step back and say, it's not just tech sectors, but across sectors, you're seeing a lot of preparation to get ahead of regulation. I think that's what's happening as a bigger trend.
Okay, well, that's also a very, very surprising for me that you say there's a trend to get ahead of regulation, because traditionally, as far as I'm concerned, it was always the case, in most of the time it was the case that companies had a standpoint like, yeah, we will do it if there's a legal requirement, but if not, we don't care. So what's this new trend? It sounds alluring. Sounds like a great future. I mean,
I think we have to distinguish here, and again, I will step back from like the regulation of physical tech products as such and talk more generally about the sustainability of the tech and other sectors. I would distinguish between what's happening in large companies versus SMEs. So for large companies, you have regulations that have come out, and now we are kind of looking at the secondary rules to promote disclosure about the kind of sustainability footprint, so the corporate sustainability reporting directive that is inevitably kind of leading the large companies that satisfy the relevant criteria there to measure, to kind of calculate, you know, their emissions, to set targets, and then they can report accordingly based on what they are doing in substance. So that's kind of a big driver for the large companies. And then the other one, if we look at the SME space, I would distinguish there between those companies where sustainability is core to their brand. I mean, if we stay within the space of phones, like Fairphone has come to market with sustainability as its core kind of value, right? Like it talks about, you mentioned at the beginning, like where are the minerals being sourced, so it would talk about the sustainable kind of sourcing of the minerals to the recycling of e-waste. So for those companies where sustainability is core to their brands, and that could be like a food product as well, be like a clothing product, right? These companies are taking action. And then for the rest of the SMEs, it's much harder because they don't have the resources to dedicate to kind of sifting through. I mean, even like a lot of them would try to get some label, but labels also cost money, and it will, in fact, just the cost of getting a label is only going to increase when the latest proposal from the European Commission becomes law. There's the one that came out last week with a proposal to substantiate green claims, and given the requirements that you have to provide evidence behind a label, companies will also be very cautious about what claims they make, I think, going forward. So that's, I think, at a basic level, it's distinguishing between company sizes, I would say.
Okay. Also here, one more follow-up question on that. You mentioned the CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive of the EU, that mandates companies to report not only on their financial results, but also on their impact on the environment and the climate. And here, it's interesting for me that you say that this is one of the big drivers of sustainability, because this is not a given, I would say, because it's we're talking about a directive that mandates companies to report on something. Reporting means theoretically they don't really need to change something, they just need to report on it. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah.
How do you think does reporting mandate drive sustainability?
Sure. What has changed with this directive is, well, I'm always taking a forward-looking view. That has always been my job as a policy advocate in the past. As and when companies will report, they will report for the first time for the financial year 2024. They will have to show like a number of steps that they have taken, and most importantly, you need a third-party assurance to validate what's being reported. So I think that this is like kind of, that's what makes a difference, because it's not that you can report anything. Whatever you're reporting needs to be substantiated, needs to be validated. And I think that's where, again, companies now are taking this seriously. And you have also a larger number of companies compared to the current directive. You will have about 50,000 companies that will be caught by the regulation, including listed SMEs.
Okay, very interesting. So let's go back a bit more on the hands-on perspective. Dietmar, could you give us maybe an example, if we're talking about phones or other tech, consumer tech products, an easy example of something or some parts that can easily be repaired, because as we sadly know, many people do not even consider to repair their phones, even though it might be possible. What are things in phones that are, for example, very easy to repair?
Easy to repair is since years nothing, to be honest, in phones. But anyhow, it's more of like how you handle your phone it's also correlated with that one. So if you have a good cover, it might prevent you that it's breaking your glass. It's clear for sure. If you don't lay your phone out in the cold or in the heat, it will help your batteries survive a little bit longer in lifetime. So these are simply measures, I would say, to help it. But if there's out anything very easy to be repaired, I'm really doubted, to be honest. So there were a few things like coffee machines were always famous for it, you know, but it's not like this that you will open your coffee machine nowadays. I would say if a few years ago, more people try to do a bit more on these things, but also here I see a degrade of product design and parts being used for it. And for other things like for phones, for sure, try to get a new battery. It's the very first thing you will feel about, because it's affecting you, because you run out of energy, then you won't use it so much anymore, and then you will think about it first. It's starting and all in your mind, in your brain, to think about, oh, maybe there's a new phone out there, and maybe I just wait for the new whatever device it's been called. You see, this is the point where you have to catch yourself and say, okay, maybe I change now my habit and search for someone who's out there might help me to replace my battery. So I think this is the first easiest thing you can even do. Look on yourself, what is happening when you're not so satisfied with a everyday device anymore, and then to find a solution. I think this is the next thing what to do. I was pretty surprised that in Austria they have this Reparaturbonus, I think it's been called. Here in Switzerland, it's there's nothing existing like this, so it's not like that advanced. And I know a lot of people are using it, and I think it's a very positive trend. Just at this point where you think about, may I buy a new one, or may I try to get I would say simply a repair on, for example, the battery, and then to reuse my phone for, I would say, maybe 1, 2, 3 years longer. It's all possible with that one. So that would be the very easiest one approach, but not for everyone, because not everybody is able to open those things anymore. Although once you open it, it's not so difficult.
Okay, so just to clarify that for all who don't know that, so the Reparaturbonus in Austria is like a financial incentive from the government that you get half of your repair costs reimbursed if you repair some tech product, which is, yeah, I think also it's really used a lot. People really yeah, so I think as soon as you promote such things, they tend to work, because, yeah, traditionally we have often heard that many people do not repair their devices because a new device is equally as expensive or even cheaper. So Dietmar, so you would also say that such financial incentives are one thing that is important to get more people to repair their devices. What else is there? Is it a problem that maybe that repair professionals are not available enough or not well known enough, or what other factors are there that you think should be changed so that more people repair their devices?
I think we had about this idea, this right to repair, and I see it quite diverse, to be honest, because you can't impose such things easily on all the suppliers and producers of electronic gadgets out there, because they were just, developing in very lifetimes new gadgets with new features. And if you just lay everything open for the public, because you could then repair it more easily, it's more easy for some others to overtake your product on the left side or on the right side of the lane and to produce it more cheaper. So this is one thing which is not so easy. But going back to your question, I would say it's not so easy to find this trade-off between get a bit more, to give a little bit more money for a repair, and then to think about, okay, how much does a new device cost? So if it's on the equal, it would be fair just to do it. If it's, you know, if there's a difference, so you pay more for a repair and you get it cheaper, a new device, most of the people, I'd say 90% say, I go for that one, because it's an economical decision in the end. But it's not a sustainable decision, you see. And by this, I would say, yeah, such initiatives, and I see also in Germany, there's a few things what they do also locally in communities to also give, yeah, some fee reductions, some bonus, whatever they might call it. I think this might help, because this is helping the people to being surprised, being convinced of their economical decisions on it. And if you find something nearby, it's brilliant. If you can send your phone via post to some others to get it back and then repair it, it might be an option. But most of us will not survive without a phone a few days. So you see, it's something nearby, close by. It's the best option you can ever have. So put your things there. A few hours later, you get it back, and it's been working again. So I would say for that one, but it's not a big economy, to be honest. Repair economy is not, it's not really existing, to be honest. It's more like that there's a few initiatives, a few companies out there, and that these are offering. And I would say finally there is some support. Let's take Apple here, because they were reducing the criteria of being accepted as a repair shop. So these, I would say, big companies, they were always like preventing themselves that they have the right to repair, which was nice. But if you bring it there and it's damaged and they say we can't repair, you can't do anything. So if you find a shop, you say yes, it's repairable, and unless what Samsung or Apple might say, yeah, bring it there. But they have their issues now of being supported by the big companies. Even they have legal fights on this. So you see, it's all these things is getting more complex in the background. You just want to simply have a repair of your device, but what is happening in the background, it's really tremendous what is out there. And hopefully I'd see in the next 10 years a more opening perspective, that is more information is being available. Let's think about of a new device now is being published, and after 3 years there's a limited access to some schematics, there's limited access to instructions how to really and safely open those things and devices. This might be a very practical one step to make it easier for others to step into this repair economy.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the right to repair, which is a movement actually, for all of you who haven't heard of them, who demand a right, so a legal framework that mandates producers to make their devices more repairable on the one hand, and to also, for example, provide spare parts for longer and provide repair opportunities. So in the EU, the right to repair, there has been a new proposal. Just it came out just some days ago, I think. So Dietmar, one more follow-up question on that. You said that it's not that easy to impose such obligations on producers because, for example, that might be a backdoor for company espionage and things like that. So it might be easy for other companies to just copy products. But if you say that that's a problem, do you also have an idea on how to how you would design such a legal framework that it would encourage more people or mandate more people to repair their products, mandate more producers to make their products more repairable?
I think first it's all about teaching and education. So it's more about, yeah, bringing people to that they say, I'm being brave and try it on myself. I think that's the very first step. That is how we started also with Repair Cafe in Austria mainly, because at the beginning everything was like unclear. If you do it, what will happen, and so on. So you have to be a bit brave and to make a first step to be honest with yourself and say, yeah, I will try it at least. If I will damage something, then it's totally damaged, but it's more or less already been damaged. And the second thing, why it's not so easy to impose those things on the supplier side or on the producer side, is that, okay, what is a good time frame for a product to make things open and public available? There is no good one, because there's things out there which been used for longer time. Let's take a tablet. A tablet is not so often exchanged. A phone or some wearables is. So how to manage that one, and how to collect this information, how to distribute? That's the second question again. So is that the big companies can really share this information, share these documents about how can it be ensured that it's not being somewhere being distributed and so on. So I think on the practical side, it's not so easy to implement such things. There's one thing where I say it might help is for sure certification, so that you're being a certified repair shop, for example, that someone really trusts you, that you know what you're doing and trusts you, that you receive information on it. And this is maybe also something where it's helping repair shops and repair people to do so, but lowering also the limits to enter it into. So don't afford about a $3,000 education training. You can do that, but then you're certified, but you won't do it as a personal. So you see what I mean? On a personal perspective, you need to be sure that there is some ability to get into this information and to retrieve it. And the right to repair is also mainly driven by big websites. You might know it. It's iFixit for sure, which is always been in the news that they take a look into the new devices and they give an indicator about how good or how bad these devices can be repaired. And this is also a very simple thing where you can help yourself and take a look. I bought a new device. Okay, it's not so good being repaired. Oh, I did something wrong. I need to be beforehand, not afterwards, once I've bought something.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, iFixit. That's a good suggestion. If you want to look into how repairable your devices or the devices you consider buying are. So connecting to the last question I asked to you, Dietmar, I'd like to ask Darshini again. Also on your view on. Because we already talked about legal frameworks now. So what do you think should a legal framework, be it on tech products or be it on sustainability for companies in general, look like so that it is really effective? So what's your opinion? Do you think that we should move in a certain direction?
Yeah, I think that I'll use that to reflect a little bit on the other proposal that came out from the EU, which is about substantiating green claims, because one big issue of the day right now is the kind of, the risk of greenwashing and how consumers are kind of being impacted by everything that companies are putting out there. And for me, there are like three things. One is how to make sure that companies don't make vague claims. When you think about like as in any label, any claim that the company gives, whether it says like, something is non-toxic or something is all natural or something is like, is there something behind this? Is there something more concrete than these generalist kind of statements? The other one is around showing evidence of performance. Like how does the law make sure that any sustainability claim that a company makes is backed up by evidence? And in that space, what we see is, there's also kind of varying costs of providing that evidence. If you're providing a claim which is about the content of what's in your product, maybe it costs like 800 euros to get an expert to validate that. If you're making a bigger claim about a company, maybe it's 8,000 euros to validate that. If you're making a even bigger one around, the whole kind of product cycle, maybe it's 54,000 euros, and that's in the European Commission proposal. That's how they're kind of explaining like the need for companies to ensure to be very careful about the scope of their claims. Yeah, I think it's like this is a space to watch, like how the regulatory framework is imposing minimum requirements on every, in this particular case, environmental claim that companies are making.
Okay, thank you. One more question on that topic is also, of course, do you think that the regulations for investors, on the other hand, also play an important role in driving sustainability? Because more and more investors are also mandated to look at what a company does in sustainability, and because they have to have a certain number of a certain share of sustainable investments in their portfolio. So do you think that's also a driving factor?
Absolutely. I mean, there is a big movement that we call investor-led sustainability, like where you're looking at how they are integrating sustainability into the investment process, from the kind of deal sourcing to the due diligence phase, to then the monitoring or the engagement with the portfolio companies. And this is very much in train. If you look at the asset management industry, all those who are, I mean, actually the easiest way to track that is to look at the UN PRI, the UN Principles for Responsible Investment signatories, and all the commitments they make under that, and all the responsible kind of policies that they have in place. But the big challenge right now for the investor space and the institutional investor space is kind of understanding the what we call like the ESG, the environmental social governance data set. So understanding the data to evaluate what's happening. And again, there is a lot of discussions around the data challenge kind of imposed by regulation. And there are also accordingly, and this is a space I'm active in, like a number of data solutions, a number of software companies kind of putting out solutions to understand, to help the investors engage, like understand and engage with their portfolio companies on this. And that for me is absolutely like a key driver of change at portfolio company level then.
Okay, coming a bit more to the individual level again. So you mentioned greenwashing and what companies, so how we can differentiate companies that have true sustainability efforts from companies who are just interested in greenwashing. But could you maybe go back to that a bit, because I think what is most interesting for our audience also is there anything that the individual today can look at to differentiate companies especially in the tech sector, but in general, from so companies who do greenwashing, from companies who have true sustainability efforts? Are there some factors that we should look at?
Yeah, I think what we are touching on right now is the whole kind of labeling system, out there. Again, there are about, in the EU itself, about 230 eco labels out there. How do you differentiate one from the other? I'm looking at my printer here. It has the Blue Angel and Energy Star, which probably we are most kind of familiar with in this space. But what do we do with all the others? And what this latest proposal is talking about is we have to make sure that there is, kind of a credible third party validating any claim that's made. There is a strict preference for in the future for EU level labels, strong support for public sector labels, and then any private ones would be approved if it's really adding value to the public sector ones. So that's at the policy level what's happening right now. But at the ground level, yeah, there are so many of them out there. And I think as a sensible consumer, am I going back to, is this just a vague statement that I really can't engage with? Is it, or is it something more substantive where I'm understanding what's in the content, what's the energy efficiency, what's the maybe social responsibility kind of, of the company behind this label. And also when we're looking at labels, we're looking about how are they funded? If they are funded by the members of that industry, then that calls into question about how neutral that label is. So there are a number of factors, but I think looking at the substance behind the label is key in every situation.
Okay. Well, then, Dietmar, another question for you. You already told us that you see some positive movement in the industry in the last years, but there still are a lot of issues. One that regularly comes up and that many people know about is also the availability of spare parts. So that's something that is often cited as a reason why it's hard to repair a product, because the spare parts are not available, or maybe that spare parts are also so special that they're not available anymore. So what do you think about that? Is that a huge hindrance in repairing things? And if yes, also, do you think that more standardization, so for example, standardized chargers, standardized screens or whatever, would help it?
So for looking on the replacement parts industry, I'd say it's very big. So it's sometimes I have the impression that on the one side they are producing new devices, on the other side of the factory just replacing these replaced parts. So this is, I would say, a good sign, but you need to be an expert. So you need to know what you need, what you're really looking for. Otherwise, it's a jungle of some electronics, and you don't understand what you actually would need. So it's not so easy to know about what you actually will require to do a repair. So that's the first sign. The second thing is to get such parts over lifespan. So if I buy something now new, I would expect to have it, for example, for the next 5 years being available. But this lifespan is getting more tight. So I always take my famous example of the first iPhone. I think it's more than 10 years ago where it's been out there, and I can just still remember when there was the tipping point when there were no replacements out there anymore, nowhere. So either in America, either not in China, and so in any continent. So it's not existing, and even less existing here in Europe for sure, to be honest. So there's a tipping point for those things where you get 0, and if you want to repair such things, you really have to go for the second market. So you have to really look on that one, but it's even more complicated, to be honest. But I'd say as a good hint for others, for individuals, is for sure if you buy very cheap and very unknown brand name, there's might some tendency that you will not find any replacement parts. This is also my experience in the repair cafe when we see some devices, any devices, any electronic devices, which is rarely unknown mostly, where it's actually don't know who is really producing it, and then you go into it and then you see this kind of replacement part is near to impossible to find it somewhere on the world. If it's a more well-known brand, there's a bit more tendency that you will also find replacement parts for it out there, but not for any time, to be also sure. So that is also a time span. Yeah, it depends on the device, what you actually want to use for longer in this case.
Okay. And so you mentioned that buying products from bigger, more well-known brands is one thing that we as consumers can look out for if we want to buy a product that is durable and or repairable. Are there any other things that we could look at if we want to buy a product that is more easily repairable than maybe the average product in this sector? Are there any aspects that we can look out for?
Yes, for sure it's the physical. So for sure, if you have it in your hand and you can watch it, how it's been constructed and how it's been made, what materials, is there something thin, is there nothing can be broken easily, etc. That's your personal experience. You get to know the product, I'd say. It's since we all buy things online, we just click and hope that it's coming the next days. We don't know. So we don't know how these things are really looking, how those things are really being produced. So my personal hint again is to really take a look on those things beforehand, physically, try to watch it, try to rotate, try to take a closer look on it. That's the very first thing I always recommend. There's always parts which can be broken. Example, a TV and the side frame, it can be broken, it can be hit by something and then it's been broken. But those things you will not get at a replacement parts because it's too big to be shipped from somewhere to somewhere else. So think about this, that there's parts which can be broken, but hopefully not damaging everything. But yeah, take a really physical look on such things is really helping you to get some feeling about, okay, if it's really thin, it's really filigrane, been constructed and made. It's all made with plastics in coverage and surroundings. Yeah, you might know about that it will not last for the next years.
Yeah, okay. So basically, a lot of things that that are kind of that seem kind of natural and but probably many people, including me, have kind of lost this this connection to really look at a product that carefully and thoroughly before we buy it, right? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we had a lot of interesting input so far. Before we move on to the questions part, I'd like to maybe talk a bit more about the positive sides of the matter we're talking about tonight, because we heard, yeah, there are a lot of problems, but we also know that there are initiatives and companies that really try to make a change in these fields. So, for example, we have the rise of the refurbished tech industry in the last years. So that companies like, for example, Refurbed or similar companies buy smartphones that are like 1 or 2 years old, or also computers or other tech devices, then refurbish them. So that means they basically then are almost as new, and then you can buy them for a much cheaper price, and that's of course far more sustainable than buying a new product, because as we know, the production process is the most problematic one. And on the other hand, we also have like companies like Fairphone or Shiftphone, or also other green tech companies that that produce green computers, or so where they look at that their products are repairable, that spare parts are available for a long time, that the resources come from responsible sources. So all of those things are out there. The problem is probably that many people don't know of it, right? Because I mean, I own a Fairphone, and when I talk to people about the matter, or when they see my phone, still I think at least 80% of people don't know the brand, even though that's a great product that is really also financially attractive. Yeah, so if we look at all of that, I want to ask you both. Maybe Darshini, you go first. What do you think for the next years? What are the most important developments that we want to see in the future, and also what do you think we as individuals can contribute to a change in a positive direction, besides maybe also changing our consumption habits a bit? But what should we push for also on a more systemic level? How do you see the next years?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, you asked earlier, like how does the average consumer know about what's happening at the level of the different tech companies? It's true, like you don't, and unless you're spending your day reading their sustainability, like the sustainability part of their financial report, it's hard to track what they're doing. For me, it's like really about them delivering on the commitments that they've put out there. Some are kind of talking about commitments by 2030, others going all the way to 2050. I think this is what we need, is that they really deliver on their promises. That's kind of on the corporate level. On the consumer level, one aspect that I'm personally passionate about is how do we manage sustainability in our pockets, which means we have access to lots of apps which give us lots of information to guide our daily choices. And I think and I was the other day mapping all of them in terms of what's available for the kind of retail investor, so in the finance space, the food space, the fashion, the fuel, energy, and if you look at the kind of the proliferation of consumer data apps out there, it's quite confusing and mind-boggling, but I think it's making good use of them. For me, as an advocate of kind of tech and as an advocate of innovation systems, let's use the tech to inform us better, and then use those to kind of become more sustainable consumers, if we are concerned about the footprint of bigger tech companies.
Thanks a lot. Dietmar, what do you think is the power of us as consumers, and also as citizens of hopefully democratic states? So what can we do, and how do you see the next years of tech industry development connected to sustainability?
I see for sure a trend where sustainability is built in anywhere, but I see also a trend on the production pricing. So looking on the lack of resources, looking on the energy you need to produce such things. If you just count one on one, I'd say in the next 20 years, you would not afford such devices on the same price like we do now, which means either you don't have such devices anymore because you can't afford, or you just buy a second hand, or you just look on it more closely and try to find out, okay, how long it will hold, how long it will have a lifetime because of the pricing. And this is one side, and how to get information, how to inform yourself. I think what Darshini was saying, it's very good to get information from many sources you will require, but I always trust more into people, to be honest. So, which means on local communities, that might be also some key, that local communities also share information, help others to inform. For example, some guidance about sustainable consuming. It's kind of sounds easy, but most people don't know about what to buy and where to look at. So I think this could be also some ideas to get really information close by, and maybe hopefully also people that get inspired to offer repair services also on the local communities. So this is my thinking about, unless you will also see more globalization, you will see more and more big companies heading up there and try to sell their products out. But for me, this might be a more long-term perspective, not only the next few years, maybe more in the 10 years or maybe in the next 15 years, which is about to come.
Thank you. Sounds interesting. Sounds like at least some hope at the end of this of this discussion. But we're not at the end yet, because we heard a lot, and we also have a lot of questions. Darshini, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just going to say bye. No, I'm joking.
No problem.
Okay.
I just get my battery charger, so I'm here in a minute.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So yeah, we have a lot of questions in our chat. Maybe I will just look for a question that is probably one that Darshini can answer, because the first one is probably for Dietmar. Is there anyone who has a question for Darshini at the moment?
I see one about how sustainable it is to buy at a second-hand marketplace online, as they control the quality there. I mean, I'm just going to reply to this as a regular consumer. I mean, I'm actively now scrolling through. I mean, I guess in the Austrian context, you have like Willhaben and others in other countries. Every country has its own variant. And as a consumer, it's like right now, I just have no, how do you say, I've shed all my reservations about sourcing secondhand. And this is a little bit of like how, as in like how norms are changing, right, in society. That before, in certain countries, if you tell someone you're going to buy secondhand, you know, they're going to say, you know, what are you doing? Whereas I feel like now there is more and more acceptance and kind of, you know, popularity of, if you look at Vestiaire Collective in France, which has taken off in a massive way, and if you also look at their impact report about, you know, how and not only are they helping to get consumers access to, in their case, like secondhand luxury goods, but also looking at other aspects of sustainability in terms of their packaging, like what packaging are they then using to deliver that. That's kind of, for me as a consumer, I think I have personally changed, and I think it's an interesting individual kind of habit that, you know, I feel now is kind of more acceptable in society.
Okay, thank you. So then let's go back to the first question. The first question was, I have heard in the news about the sustainable phone by Nokia. Have you heard something about it? What is your opinion on that? That's probably a question for Dietmar. Have you heard of that?
Not really. I'm not sure if it's Nokia or if it's Withings. I'm not sure about the brand name, but I know they were planning something, and there was out some retro style phone, which is really cool because I love retro stuff. But how sustainable it would be, it's kind of difficult. Then I would say it's more better to go with Fairphones because they have more experience, they have more market spread on it experience. With experience, I mean there's more looking also on the software. So it's not so easy to just construct a smartphone. Smartphone is very easy because the hardware is not so difficult, but the software, it's really a big thing. And here I'm not sure if Nokia is really on up to speed like the others, because if you step into that market, you need to be sure that you have a very good software, a very good operating system, and that's not so easy to jump into again what they were in. So we all can remember we might have started all our smartphone experiences in life with such small devices with black gray LCDs. And yeah, from that onward, I would say it would be nice if they can bring something again, but it would not be so easy to really get a market share on a global space again.
I see. The second question, Darshini also already replied to it, but maybe Dietmar, you also want to say something to that. It's I would be interested in how sustainable it is to buy at secondhand marketplaces online, like a back market. I like that usually as they control the quality there, and it seems more reliable than from private sellers. Do you have an opinion on that, Dietmar?
Yes, sure. I see a very good example in Switzerland, and I know they are now expanding to other European countries, which is Revendo. So they're doing pretty the same. So they just yeah, buy stuff used, and then they just kind of doing refurbished stuff there, and all their shops is really nice because there's all made of sustainable materials in there. And they try also to attract very young people into that shops. So which is a really nice idea. So I'd say either if it's some marketplace where you go and find something, it could be an idea. It's even better to just buy new things. You said it in the very beginning, 90% is of producing, and you would not find, I believe, any labels of how good or how bad it was produced, your device, to be honest. You don't see it. You just see labels on how much energy consumptions, how much radiation it will give you once in operating, but you don't see these 90% anymore. So looking on these 90% of CO2, you really need to think about, okay, giving a longer lifespan when I'm just using something secondhand, it's always a good choice in my understanding.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, as a next question, not really a question, it's a remark that Mariana states that in her country it's usually cheaper to repair something, and that's why it's the first option. Well, yeah, I think that was the case everywhere some decades ago, that it was cheaper to repair stuff than to buy new ones. But yeah, sadly in the tech sector this has changed. Also, we have a comment on what if we could elaborate a bit more on the right to repair. Maybe Dietmar, do you want to say something to that, or should I elaborate a bit on that?
I'm not so an expert on how to enforce such rights. If it needs to be being introduced dramatically, because we really have a problem with resources. Think on that. So if you could replace these rare earths on those devices, then you have, I would say, another perspective how you can not push so hard on those things. But since you don't have, since we don't know how to construct those things, and we do have a lot of e-waste out there already in the world, and we don't have automatic robots or devices which can easily recycle those devices that we don't use anymore since years. we have to find a way to push it a bit more. Push means how does the producers react, because they need to find a way to work on these legal frameworks or kind of approaches to it. So for me, I'm not so good to really give a good answer on it, but I would love to see a bit more push on this direction. And maybe it's not a really right of repair, it's more a bit of right to have things longer in lifespan. It's more like this, I would say, because repair means that anybody can repair, but maybe not everybody is able to do it.
If I may add to that, what I saw in the latest proposal is we're talking about the right to claim repair from producers, not only during the legal guarantee period, but beyond the legal guarantee period. I think that's kind of something that I picked up. And when you're talking about, what's the length of time? And I think there's another question after that, according to the timeline, would it be possible to change the duration of the warranty of products? I guess it's product specific then. I haven't gone into the weeds of that regulation to know, what applies to which product. But yeah, I can see just at a general kind of from a regulatory analyst perspective, how do you define beyond the legal guarantee? That's going to be heavily contested. I think, yeah.
Okay. The next question, Azam asked it. Do you want to add something to that or to clarify something, Azam, what you meant with that?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to ask specifically that if the producers put the warranty time shorter, maybe the people who are using that, they know that they have a problem very soon, so they care about the products in a better way. And in this case, they don't need to repair a lot. So it was my idea that I asked this question. Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone want to answer?
I still try to understand, to be honest.
Okay.
I can make it more clear. I'm so sorry. So
now, if you make it shorter, the warranty, then what is the benefit for a producer? Because then you don't have so many investments on the backside to having repair opportunities. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean that if you produce a cell phone and you put a warranty for 1 year or 6 months, you can make it shorter with a specific details for the consumer, and they know that there are danger moments of using this cell phone, so they care it a lot. So we can change the lifestyle of consumers in the regulation that we put for that cell phone. This is my point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good question, to be honest. Not so easy to answer what is happening on that, because you always have the legal aspect. So you cannot easily just limit it downwards to 0 or something. Then you're not able to sell anything. You don't have legal permission to sell it. That's the first thing. But if it would change your behavior, it might be an idea. Yeah, to be honest, it's really interesting. Looking on the opposite side, if you would just increase warranty time to, I don't know, 5 years, just an example, and you pay 400 euros more because you have to pay for more warranty times, as you know, washing machines they're doing it long times, or fridge or something like that in the kitchen area. That could be also an idea, but will the consumers accept that? And this is the opposite trend again, that these things have been removed from the market because people were not thinking about. They just tell, yes, in 3 years I'm always now being sure that I will buy a new one. At the time of buying, you see what I mean? And this is a kind of strange thinking I experience, because if I want to buy something, I want to use it for sure, and not think about when I will dispose it and get a new one. So you see.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have another comment about the index of repairability that will be mandated by law in France. I think you already commented on repair indexes, Dietmar. From the one from iFixit is one that is very that is one that is kind of well known. Is there anything else that you would that you want to comment to that?
I like the movement. I think it's a very good idea, but I think it's the enforcement is just not so easy. So if you want to repair your hybrid car, recently I saw that in iFixit that you can repair your Toyota hybrid car, whatever, when the battery is bad. So how to tackle this enormous amount of products and varieties out there? So if you really want to enforce it, do you have to really be using experts, have time, have money to really just put that in the index on? So you can't say this is looking like a 5 and this is looking like a 7. So you have to really be sure what is the criteria just to put that. And this is what iFixit has been doing for many years, but not for every product out there it's existing. So if you want to regulate it like this, it's a very good idea, but you need to be sure, okay, where's the limit? Where can I put it on, and where it's not possible with normal thinking of putting such effort into it.
I'm just looking at the website that's there. So the current practice is that 40% is apparently repaired, but the government wants to bump that up to 60%. And I thought 40% is, as the current practice, is already quite high, right? I mean, it's great that I would have imagined for some reason that it would be much lower. I don't know if you have a sense across other countries, like, is that the typical kind of rate being repaired?
It's not so easy to tell, depends on what you repair, but just looking on my experience on Repair Cafe, what I gained in the last 10 years, it's like more than the half. And it's not only repairs, sometimes it's only like a trick or something to show the user how to correctly use the device. It's not only like this. So I was also kind of surprised, but increasing that number to such a rate is it's a good deal. It's a good big goal in my understanding.
I've learned something here.
Yeah, okay. Well, if there are no further questions at the moment, then I would like to ask Linda or Medina for the wrap up of the main of the key findings of our session tonight.
Yes. So I think Linda is not here in the moment. Okay, so I will wrap up our discussion today. So while we were discussing, Linda and I took some notes, and this is what we like the most important keys for today. So tech companies are currently focused on developing green products and using renewable energy, with some making commitments to introduce circularity in their product cycle. However, there is still room for improvement, and awareness of sustainability is not as high as it is for mobility. The increasing complexity of products has made it difficult to repair and maintain them, which is a problem for both consumers and the environment. Positive trends include consumer pressure and market demand for sustainability, as well as regulation and preparation for future regulation. Reporting on sustainability efforts drives companies to take actions, but there are still challenges such as the lack of a repair economy, the need for education and certification for repair shops, and availability of spare parts. Individuals can contribute by being more sustainable consumers and using apps to inform them about sustainable options. Sustainable consumption is a growing trend, and local communities can play a key role in sharing information and resources. Overall, while there are challenges, there is also progress being made towards more sustainable tech products and practices. Yes,
Thanks a lot. I think that that's a good summary of what we discussed. Well, then I will. There's just one thing left. I want to all invite you to our next talk that will be about social lifestyle and sustainability, which is about the connections of sustainability with our relationships with other humans. This is not such a well-known area connected to the term sustainability, but that's why it's even more important that you all come there to so that you can learn something about it. So thanks for coming, and especially thanks to our great speakers who really gave us some insights from two different perspectives that I think were very that complemented each other. And I think this is something we could all profit from, and that more people will profit from, because we will upload our recording on YouTube. And yeah, thanks for coming. I hope you can take something with you. And also, of course, we're always looking for new members. If you're interested, then please reach out to us. You can find us on the web, as you can see here. Thanks a lot for participating, and I wish you a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.